What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down and take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching story. Today, we're going to sit down and talk about good old Onslaught once again. But this time, we're going to talk about Phase 2. And let me explain. When it came to Marvel Comics in the late 1990s, they gave us this massive crossover, better known as Avengers, X-Men, Onslaught. But when it came to this crossover, it was technically broken up into multiple parts. So you had the prologue, Phase 1, Phase 2, and you also had good old epilogue as well. Now, we already did a full story video for the prologue in Phase 1. Today's full story video is more about Phase 2. And Phase 2 really does show like how all the other different characters in New York are truly being affected by this event. So like Spider-Man, the Punisher, Green Goblin, and the list goes on. How this one particular event is truly affecting all these other characters in the world of Marvel Comics. I do hope you enjoy today's full story video, Phase 2 of Onslaught. Okay, so like getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, right? We're going to go ahead and get back into our coverage over the Onslaught crossover and begin Phase 2. And Phase 2 kicked off with Uncanny X-Men issue number 336. Now, this issue right here is just another step of Onslaught becoming a bigger problem for our heroes to actually handle. And it's all because of Franklin Richards. And you'll see what I mean as we get into the opening pages of this storyline. Because we're picking up with Franklin Richards, and this is Franklin right now just in the body of Onslaught, wishing to go home. He is hoping to find a way home. Now, for Franklin, he's not alone. You also have Charles Xavier there as well. But for Charles, unfortunately, he's unable to communicate with Franklin. And so right now for Franklin, he's alone technically. And he knows that Charles may be the key to get him out of there. Now for Franklin, it's also him telling Charles how he was tricked by Onslaught, because you had Onslaught pretend to be this kid as a way to get close to Franklin, to bring his guard down, which of course did work, because now Onslaught has a hold of Franklin Richards. You didn't have Onslaught appear. When he does, he tells Franklin like, hey, we got some work to do. We are going to conquer the world. But while you have that going on, you also have Apocalypse and also the Watcher watching what's happening across the city of New York. Now remember, for Apocalypse, he's really big on survival of the fittest. The strong may live, the weak may die, the strong may lead, the weak must follow. But anything, most of the time, the strong will come out of any kind of big time situations. And so for Apocalypse, he's one surprised that it's Charles right now bringing in this supposed new era into the world. But it's also the Watcher saying, you don't realize that Onslaught is not like your regular mutant. Like, he's beyond human or mutant. He is a brand new form, a brand new kind of species coming into this world. Like, technically, when it comes to your whole motto, he will be the thing that will survive. Everything else most likely will not. But now we are able to kind of meet up with some of the characters who are getting involved in this event. Some members of the Avengers and Fantastic Four and also the X-Men. Now, here's the thing, because it's chaos across New York. You have Sentinels just attacking the place. You have riots happening all over the place as well. But either way, you do have our Avengers and X-Men and Fantastic Four wanting to help out all those different people in need. Now, it's also coming here to kind of get more, readings on the powers of Onslaught, because they're right now trying to build a special suit that could most likely help them to bring down Onslaught as well. It's them trying almost everything they can to hopefully stop this chaos, but to also save Franklin Richards. And for Susan, she wants to be out there in the middle of the battlefield to wait for the right moment to hopefully get her son back. Now, when it came to phase one of the things we saw was Magneto getting back involved with the X-Men, right? But also like Rogue being by his side. And it kind of seemed like at first you were going to have Rogue get with Magneto and leave Gambit behind, which for me is just completely wild. But here's the thing, because for Magneto, he does not remember anything at all when it comes to him in the X-Men or him with Charles Xavier. Like, he has forgotten almost everything from his early days in his life. But the thing is, he has been told that he may be responsible for what's going on with Charles Xavier, what's going on right now in New York City. And so for Magneto, he's having a hard time trying to get over the fact that he's at fault for all of this mess. Now, for Gambit, it's him right now trying to be in his corner. But for Gambit, it's kind of like, you know what? Even though you are technically with my girl, it seems like, I understand what you're going through. Because for Gambit, we learned that he has some big secrets that have not been told to us yet. And those secrets are kind of like some dark things. And it's him right now trying to move on from the past mistakes to become a better person. It's Gambit right now telling Magneto to do the same thing. Like, you made mistakes in the past, but you now have the ability to move forward in your life to do better things. Now for Magneto, he kind of takes those words to heart and just runs off, because now it's something that he can take Onslaught on by himself. But after he leaves, you have Rogue tell Gambit that she heard what he said. And so it's kind of re-establishing these two characters getting back together. But as we transition over to our heroes at 4 Freedom Plaza, we also get reminded of what happened at the end of phase 1 of this event. The whole idea of Onslaught releasing an EMP across the city. And of course, it did affect some of the heroes like Iron Man and also Vision. So those two characters plus Ant-Man, they're off the board at the moment. And so for our heroes, they're right now trying to finish the Xavier protocol, because we had learned that in Excalibur issue number 100, Charles Xavier had files on all the different members of the X-Men to how to bring them down, including himself. And so right now for our heroes, they're trying to build some psionic armor to use against Charles to hopefully defeat him. Now, back at the Citadel, we're seeing that Onslaught is getting stronger and stronger by merging with Charles Xavier and also Franklin Richards. But here's the thing, because you have Susan want to go in there and get her son back. But for Cyclops, he tells her, that's a bad idea. Like, you don't fully understand what we're going up against here. Like, that being is just way too powerful. Now, for Susan, it's her kind of acting like Scott does not understand what she's going through being a parent, but you didn't have Cable and Storm appear. Now, for these two characters, they were away fighting against the Hulk. But now that's handled, they can rejoin the rest of the X characters. But it's also Cable saying like, nah, my dad knows what it's like to be a parent. Now, as we get back over into the body of Onslaught, it's Charles Xavier just trying his best to comfort the boy. Franklin is freaking out, but it's also Charles saying like, you gotta fight back against Onslaught here, because he's trying to use you to accomplish some type of goal that will affect the entire world. Now for Onslaught, he appears and he absorbs Franklin energy. And so we're kind of left to wonder, what in the world is he going to do next with Franklin Richards? But also you have Onslaught tell Charles Xavier that you have now officially lost your mental powers. But back on reality, you have our heroes, really more Magneto at first, fighting against Onslaught. Now for Magneto, the reason why he's fighting against Onslaught because he feels responsible for the creation of this creature. This thing gotta go right now, out the door. Now you do have the rest of the heroes jump in to actually help out with this situation, right? But here's the thing, because for Onslaught, we were kind of left to believe that he's just this psionic energy being, and that's truthfully it. but there's more to him now, because here he is right now fighting against our heroes. You do have our heroes being able to crack his shell, his armor. And when they do that, they see Charles Xavier. Now, for Charles, he tells us right off the bat, he says, amazing. I'm existing on two planes of existence at the same time. Inside the astral plane, yet outside in reality as well. And that right there is really important. And let me explain why. Because right after that, you didn't have our heroes continue to break apart the armor Onslaught. You didn't have Thor just fly in, grab Charles, and being able to pull Charles away from Onslaught. That should have been the end of him, because Charles was his host. But that's no longer the case. Because now with Charles no longer kind of being his host, he has now more freedom. Now, we're not really told everything about Onslaught here, but it's kind of like he now has the powers of Magneto, Charles Xavier, the powers of Franklin Richards as well, all in one. And so with that happening, and no longer Charles seems like holding him back, he can now cut loose. Now, everything will be explained more in later parts of this storyline, but for right now, that's just the case. But you didn't have Onslaught being able to release this massive energy dome around the area of Central Park and tossing our heroes away as well. And so for our heroes, it's kind of like, okay, what can we do now? But also to establish that Charles no longer has his mental abilities either. Now, the ending of this issue alone is kind of cool. And the reason why, because it's Apocalypse and the Watcher kind of realizing like, okay, what can we do here? Like, I think we have a huge problem. Like, Onslaught is way more powerful than we expected. This being way more than what we expected. Apocalypse is also kind of showing a tad bit of fear here for me personally. But for Apocalypse, he's now asking, what can we do to stop him? Like, what is our next goal here? And so you have the Watcher show an image of Cable, having us believe that Cable might be the key to bring down Onslaught. And so now we have to get into X Factor issue number 126. Now, with this issue alone, we do pick up a Forge right now with Sabretooth and also Mystique. Now, this is going to be our last X Factor video for the time being. And the reason why, because the rest of volume 1 of X Factor, unfortunately, is not on Marvel Unlimited yet. And matter of fact, those issues have not been collected any type of way at all when it comes to physical or even digital. So unfortunately, I can't review those books until they come out some kind of format. But either way, this is kind of picking up where our last video left off at. The whole idea that you now have X Factor know that there is another beast, better known as Dark Beast. And for Dark Beast, as we all know, he comes from the age of Apocalypse reality. Now, when it came to the end of that reality, him and 3 other characters were able to make it over to the main Marvel universe. That would be him, Sugarman, X-Man, and also Holocaust. Now, with all that being said, for Dark Beast, in the Onslaught crossover, he had officially joined the side of Onslaught. But also for X Factor, they had discovered a few things. Like, for example, Dark Beast is currently holding on to our Hank McCoy from the main Marvel universe. Also, Havoc and also Random are working for Dark Beast and technically under his control. But either way, for Forge, their main goal right now for him and X Factor is to find out where the real Hank McCoy is at. And so you have our heroes split up into 3 teams. The first team will be Forge and Sabretooth. Team 2, Mystique and Wildchild. Now, those 2 teams will go out of their way to find Dark Beast. The last team, Shard and also Polaris, they'll stay behind to watch Havoc and also Random, who are currently their hostages at the moment, or prisoners. Now, for me personally, I kind of like these next few pages, and the reason why, because with me covering all these different X books, right, it gets a tad bit confusing, and sometimes I may forget a few things when it comes to all these different X characters. And so for Mystique and Wildchild, I kind of forgot these 2 characters don't really like one another for a lot of different reasons. And so we're kind of being able to see like, hey, don't forget, Wild Child and Mystique, they don't like each other. And for Wild Child, he wants to make sure Mystique stays on the good side and not on the bad side, because once she does cross that line, Wild Child will most likely try to take her out. Now, for Forge and also Sabretooth, it's a tad bit different, and let me explain, because for Forge, he was kind of forced to allow Sabretooth to be on the X Factor team. For Forge, he's kind of like, I don't like this guy at all. And matter of fact, I would be okay if he wasn't on my team. But unfortunately, he is on my team. And I don't like this at all. But also because of Forge, he found out earlier on in our coverage over X Factor that when it comes to the government, they have been working on a program called the Hounds. And basically, they're mutants being used as a way to hunt down other mutants. And so for Forge, he's kind of like, I'm trying my best to be a good guy for the American government. But at the same time, it shows that they got a lot of things going on behind the scenes to show me I truly can't trust them all the way. Now, the next few pages are really more of us just seeing our heroes find Beast. Unfortunately for Beast, he's currently being held in some kind of device. And with him being in that device, he's right now being, well, basically tortured. Now, before our heroes are able to free him, well, that is the moment they're confronted by Fatale. Now, Fatale works for Dark Beast, and so for our heroes, they already know she has to go, which honestly does not take that long for them to come out because, well, they have the numbers, but also this whole little battle scene right here is only like 2 pages long, and that's truthfully it. But I kind of want to transition over to Polaris and also Char, because these two characters, they're right now watching over Random and also Havoc. Now, this kind of gives us the origin of Random finally of the like 13 issues. But for Random, what's going on with him is that when he first gained his mutant ability, he would just turn into a pile of goo. He had no idea how to control his ability until Dark Beast taught him how to. Now, to Random, he looked at Dark Beast as a father figure, because you have to remember, when it came to 4 characters coming into this reality after leaving Age of Apocalypse, Sugar Man and Dark Beast, they arrived 20 years in the past. So allowing those 2 characters time to kind of work behind the scenes. And so for Dark Beast, he had that ability to kind of play with different people, different mutants. And so for a good while there, for Random, he kind of looked at Dark Beast as a father figure. Now, for Random, it's also him confessing his love to Polaris, which honestly, I kind of saw, and honestly, I don't like this at all. Like, it would kind of make more sense for me if like there was that possibility that she would leave Havoc for him, but the entire time it was kind of like, no, he's in the friend zone, and unfortunately, he can't get out of the friend zone. Now, for Havoc, he does ask her, what do you think about me? But getting back over to our other heroes who are then able to allow Beast to be free once again, you as Sabretooth realize there's something going on with Beast here. And Wild Child also joins in. Now, we already know. For Sabretooth and Wild Child, they had picked up on the scent that this is not their Beast. This is Dark Beast once again trying to play mind games with them. Now, this whole idea of that happening, it does kind of get dragged out in this issue, but that is what's going on. Because Forge and Mystique, they're kind of like, hey, what is up with you 2 guys at the moment? But now we have to transition back over to, well, Polaris and Havoc. Now for Havoc, it's him really playing mind games with Polaris because he knows that she is madly in love with him. But on top of that is him trying to break free. And so she believes that for Havoc, he's no longer under Dark Beast's control. She believes that he is finally free. Unfortunately, that's not the case at all. And you have Random kind of say like, hey, Polaris, he's lying to you. Like, please stop. I don't want to see you get hurt. Polaris is ignoring him. You have Random break free and try to stop her, to stop Havoc. Havoc does blast Random. Polaris still believes that Havoc is on her side, but you didn't have Havoc blast her. And this kind of leads us into the ending of this storyline because we then see our heroes being able to realize, like, hey, you know what? That right there is not the real beast. That's Dark Beast. Where's the real beast? Oh, he's right there. Cool. Break him free. Hank McCoy is now back in the picture alongside with the rest of the X-Men. But you also have the rest of the team regroup with Polaris and Shard, where you have Shard tell the rest of the team, like, she got badly injured by Havoc. He got away, and so did Random as well. Well, he disappeared. But either way, it's right now Polaris needs to get over to a hospital. Now, like I said, when it comes to X Factor, the Volume 1 series, unfortunately, this is the last issue we have at the moment until you have Marvel being able to give us the rest of the issues of Volume 1. So our X coverage gonna get a tad bit easier. With that being oh man. Okay, so we're getting back into our coverage over the Onslaught crossover. Going to cover 2 more issues of Phase 2. And we do pick up with Cable issue number 35. And this is where you have Apocalypse finally getting involved in this event. Like, finally, after everything been popping off, he says, you know what? I think it's time for me to go ahead and get involved. But of course, for Apocalypse, he always has some kind of special reason when he does something for somebody else. Now, as we get into the opening page of this storyline, we're picking up with the Watcher. And I kind of like this a lot. And the reason why, because for the Watcher, he can't do anything at all when it comes to helping out our heroes. His task is to just watch what's happening right now for our heroes as they go up against Onslaught. He just must stand there and watch as it all goes down. And he believes that we're getting very close to the end of the era of heroes and bringing in a new era. The problem is that he has no idea what that new era could possibly be. But now we have to transition over to Cable and also, well, Susan Storm. Now, when we do, it's the 2 characters currently just standing in the middle of this psionic hurricane. Psionic energy just flying around in this entire area. Because for Susan, she wants to get over to where her son is at. She wants to save Franklin Richards. Now, for Cable, he's trying to tell her, like, we cannot stay here too long. With our powers combined, we are barely able to make it through this actual hurricane. We need to turn back at the moment. But for Susan, she keeps forgetting that there are other people out there who are parents just like her. The only difference is that their situations are a tad bit different than hers. But at the same time, this is a parent who's trying their best to save their child. They'll do anything to get their child back. But while you have the 2 characters talking to one another, you have Susan bring up the fact that when it comes to Onslaught, he's getting stronger and stronger by the minute. And that is when you have Apocalypse appear. And he says she is correct. And for me personally, this is kind of cool. And it's not because, like, oh, here's Apocalypse, y'all, this powerful enemy. No, because the history behind these 2 characters. Because it all began when it came to Apocalypse giving young Nathan, when he was a baby, the techno-organic virus. And then after that, so many other things happened between these 2 characters. Like, they are literally mere enemies for one another. They are destined to fight against one another. But for Apocalypse, he came here to supposedly help. Now for Cable, he knows he cannot truly trust Apocalypse at all. And you have the 2 characters at first battle against each other. Now, neither side is really able to win at the moment. But you also have Apocalypse tell Cable, like, I didn't really come here to fight you. I came here to help you out because I think I have a way to stop Onslaught. I think I have a way to free Franklin Richards. Now, for Cable, he cannot believe what Apocalypse is saying. But for Susan, she wants to. And so she stops the battle. She's kind of like, listen, if he says he has a way to save my son, we need to hear him out. Because for her, she made deals with bad guys in the past before, like Doctor Doom. And so it's her right now telling Cable, like, sometimes you don't have a choice but to make a deal with the devil, like Apocalypse. Now, for Apocalypse, he knows what they have to do to kind of save Franklin Richards. They must go into the astral plane. But for Apocalypse, he really can't do that. But you know who can? Cable. Now, for Susan, she wants to go with Cable and Apocalypse to hopefully free her son. But Cable says no, because right now for him, with the techno-organic virus just eating away at his body, he's kind of like, listen, I only have enough energy for me and him, not you. But also, I need the energy to keep the virus at bay in my body at the moment. And so you do have Apocalypse and Cable go ahead and head into the astral plane. And so once you do have the two characters being able to make it over to the astral plane, it's really cool here because you have the book kind of show off the differences between these two characters. Like, for example, for Apocalypse, he says, I wonder if Onslaught himself knows of the untold wreckage he brings upon the universe, how his very existence acts as a siphon, funneling down the collective psionic energy of all living creatures for his own personal usage. He finds this amazing. But for Cable, he's kind of like, you are a madman. What kind of madman would love the idea of seeing all this destruction being done across the universe, on Earth, and also in the astral plane as well? Now, with our two characters right now being in the astral plane, it does allow Cable the ability to kind of fix his body back up again, to make sure the techno-organic virus does not have most control over his body. Now, while he is doing that, you have Apocalypse remember that he was the one who gave Cable the techno-organic virus. And he's very surprised to see that Cable is still alive at this point in his life. Now, for Apocalypse, he's kind of like, listen, if you want a battle, we can. I can go ahead and give you a cure for the techno-organic virus. But for Cable, he says no, because with the virus, he learned how to survive, how to do so many things with the virus attached to him and kept pushing forward. Now, for Onslaught back on Earth, he's still holding on to Franklin Richards. And so you have Franklin right now just hoping for some kind of miracle that somebody will come out of their way to free him from Onslaught's control. But unfortunately right now, little man just gotta sit there for the moment. But for Onslaught, he realized there's something off right now at the moment. Because for Onslaught, he detected Cable and also Apocalypse on the astral plane trying their best to sneak up on him, because in this part in the astral plane, he's vulnerable. Like for our two characters, they should be able to bring Onslaught down. But here's the thing, with Onslaught now knowing they are there, you have him being able to create these psychic constructs of different characters to fight against our heroes, Hulk, Post, and Magneto as well. Now, while you do have our two heroes fighting against these fake versions of other characters, you have Apocalypse finally tell us what is his idea on how to free Franklin from Onslaught's control. And so you have Apocalypse say, in the future, you might become an enemy of mine. You are a threat to my plans down the road. And so to make sure that you're not going to be a threat for me down the road, I must go ahead and kill you off. That was his whole idea of how to free Franklin from Onslaught, by killing Franklin here and now to, well, stop Onslaught, but to also protect his plans down the road. But at the very last second, you then have Susan Richards appear, using her force field as a way to stop Apocalypse from being able to kill off her son. Here's the thing, for Cable, he brought her along with them over to the astral plane, but he had used his ability to keep her hidden from Apocalypse up until this moment right here. Now, once you do have Cable being able to get a hold of Apocalypse, for Onslaught, he begins to take Franklin away. But before he does leave, he tells Franklin, look at these people. Look at this race of people right here. They rather betray one another to achieve their own personal goals, except working together for an even bigger goal. This is ridiculous. Now, for Franklin, he understands what was happening here. Like, no, my mom stopped Apocalypse so that I would not die. Yes, they betrayed him, but for an actual good reason here. Either way, Onslaught does leave. Now, to Apocalypse, he feels like they had failed, but not because of him, because of Cable and also Susan. But here's the thing, though, because to Cable, he's kind of like, no, in your mindset, we showed you our weak side, trying our best to save that boy. But in reality, we showed you our strong side by trying to save that boy, but also making sure to stop you as well. Because I know if I had given you a chance to do anything you want to Franklin like you did to me, it would break my heart. Now, Apocalypse does leave. And for Susan, she's now beginning to think that Apocalypse was right. Like, there's no way to save Franklin at all. But for Cable, he tries his best to bring hope into her mind and heart, and the possibility that they will be able to save Franklin Richards. And so you have Apocalypse go back over to the Watcher. Now, when he does, he's trying his best to say, like, yes, they has showed me their weakness. But for the Watcher, he's kind of like, no, what they has shown you is actual strength, because they did everything they can to avoid the possibility to become something like you. And that right there is not weak. That shows real strength right there. But to close on this chapter alone, we see that Franklin Richards is different now. Like, something changed in him. The possibility that he's no longer going to just sit on the sideline and watch Onslaught being able to win here. That for Franklin, it's now him saying, like, it's time for me to take action to hopefully help out the rest of the heroes against this creature. Now, I kind of want to go ahead and transition over to X-Force issue number 58. Now, here's the thing. X-Force issue number 58 is really more of a impact issue. And remember, impact issues are technically just these books that come out to show us the actions of Onslaught affecting other people across the world. Like how his actions truly do affect them. And so for X-Force, it's one of those impact issues, and you don't really see the actions of Onslaught affecting them until the very end of this book. But as we dive into the opening pages of this chapter, we are given a flashback. Now, with this flashback, it's kind of cool because we're kind of seeing Roberto playing soccer, Roberto being Sunspot. But this is a callback to the first time he appeared in Marvel Comics. In Marvel Comics Present number 4, which of course gave us the first appearance of the New Mutants. Now, for Sunspot, while he's playing soccer, the crowd is there, his girlfriend is there, his dad is there, everything is going great for him. And once he does hit the winning shot, you then have this voice called out to him, saying like, Roberto, I need your help. Listen very carefully. I'm somebody you can trust, but I came to you first for a very special reason. You are now and always will be the heart and soul of X-Force. Without you, the rest will not follow. And so it's him saying like, I need you to help save the rest of the X-Force team. So let's go. But as we get back into reality, we're now picking up with Siren. Now, the last time we saw X-Force, they had fought against Mr. Sinister in the earlier parts of our coverage of this event. They lost to him, and he was able to grab Nate Gray and get the heck out of there. And so, unfortunately for X-Force, they were completely knocked out. Siren is the first to wake up, but she realized the rest of the team is still completely knocked out. And so you didn't have her try to contact Cable. The problem is Cable right now is with the rest of the heroes trying to deal with Onslaught at the moment. And so technically for Siren here, she's on her own to find a way to wake up X-Force, starting with Meltdown, better known as Boom Boom. But as we dive into the minds of the different people on X-Force, we now pick up with Meltdown. Now for Meltdown, better known as Boom Boom, in her mind is her trying to kill off Victor Creed, better known as Sabretooth. And here's the reason why, okay? So for Charles Xavier, this man truly believed that he had the ability to cure the mind of Sabretooth, to turn him into a better person, a good guy, which of course was not going to work at all. But here's the thing. You had Logan go out his way to stab the mind of Sabretooth, where of course it did cause some brain damage. Now, for our heroes, they believe the brain damage was very severe, but in reality, it wasn't. Once his mind had healed up, you then had Victor pretend that he was some kind of house pet. Now, when it came to Meltdown, she believed that everybody deserves a second chance, including Victor. And so he kind of played on that for a good while until he has shown his true colors, that technically he was just pretending the entire time. And so in her mind right now, it's her killing him as a way to get payback against him. But that is when she's confronted by Sunspot and our mysterious character. Now, here's the thing, because for each member of X-Force, they are bringing something to the table. They are bringing something to the team. And so for Meltdown, it's Sunspot saying, your fighting spirit always helps us to keep pushing forward. Even though we face some crazy odds, it's always your fighting spirit that keeps pushing us forward. You need to come with me and our mysterious friend. And so for Meltdown, she's down to go with Sunspot. Now, the next person up is Caliban, and I kind of found this a tad bit funny. And the reason why, because for Caliban, in his mind right now, he's going through the origin of Superman. It's kind of cool. And so once he does crash on Earth, his parents are Cable and also Domino. Now, once you do have him kind of grow up in his mind, he's then confronted by Sunspot, Meltdown, and our mysterious character. Now, for Caliban, what he brings to the team is the idea of hope. And so right now, it's them saying like, you must come with us. Now, for Caliban, he's afraid to go with them because that means they go back into reality where you have, of course, Onslaught at. But you say, listen, just come with us. You can trust us. And for Caliban, he does go with them. Up next is Warpath. Now, for me, this is kind of sad because for Warpath, the only reason why he kind of got involved, the whole idea, all the different X teams and like Emma Frost Hellions, because of his big brother, better known as Thunderbird, who unfortunately died shortly after Giant Size X-Men. And so for Warpath, he's always been trying to do his best for his brother. And so in his mind right now is him being able to spend time with his brother. But just like Caliban in Meltdown, he's confronted by the different members of X-Force. And they say, hey, listen here, Warpath, you bring courage to our team. We need you to come with us once again. Now for Warpath, he wants to bring his brother with him. But the thing is, Thunderbird is already on the other side, the afterlife. Warpath is not there yet. And so it's Sunspot saying like, no, you must come with us if you want to survive. Now, the next person up is Shatterstar. Now, for the X-Force, they had kind of expected to see Shatterstar right now in some kind of battlefield, except he's not. He's just chilling out in the middle of the field, relaxing. And the thing is, he does not want to go with them. But the thing is, you had Sunspot bring up the fact that, listen, you have been trying to figure out answers of your actual origin. And the thing is, if you stay here, you're not going to be able to figure out the answers that you are seeking. But it's also Sunspot saying what you bring to the team right now is your passion. We need you. Your warrior passion is what we're missing at the moment. And so for Sunspot, for Shatterstar, he's down to go because he wants answers to his actual origin. Now, for Domino, she's in the dark at the moment. Now, real quick, for Domino, we have to remember that she never truly wanted to be on X-Force. It was Cable's thing. She only stayed for Cable. It was her love for Cable that made her stay. And so for X-Force, they're like, come with us. She's saying no because she's afraid of fighting her past, bringing light to her past. But it's Sunspot saying, you don't understand. Like for Cable, he is our caretaker, right? Like he is our, our strength. but you bring belief in ourselves. We need your leadership. And so just like that, you have her also going with X-Force as well. Now, this is where I might be a tad bit wrong here, and guys, please forgive me, but we do pick up with our heroes and our mysterious friend who tells them, go into the light. Now, for our heroes, they're going into the light, and it does seem like they're heading into the afterlife. But you didn't have our heroes realize this is wrong. And you didn't have our mysterious character turn into Onslaught. And so for our heroes, they realize what they have to do here. Defeat Onslaught right now in their minds to be able to go back into reality. Where, of course, you do have everyone wake up. Now, when they do wake up, they're confronted by Siren, who's really excited to see them. But at the same time, she's kind of like, okay, how are you guys? Like, what in the world is going on with you? Now, for Warpath, he's right now looking for his new girlfriend, Risque, who had apparently disappeared right after Mr. Sinister had attacked him. So she had now officially exited the book. But then you have our heroes be confronted by the astral form of the younger version of Charles Xavier. Now, this younger version of him is telling our heroes, like, thank you. Like, thank to you guys, I am freed from Onslaught. You were the only ones that Onslaught could not completely touch. And so thanks to you guys, you had freed me. And the book kind of ends on that note right there. So we're not going to get another X-Force book for this crossover. So it's going to be a good while before we dive into X-Force once again. But this is okay, so getting back into our coverage over the Onslaught crossover, we're going to go ahead and pick up with 3 more chapters of this crossover. Now, here's the thing, because all 3 chapters kind of go together in one single storyline where it's the Avengers getting ready for the final strike against Onslaught to hopefully bring him down, but to hopefully save the world as well. Now, here's the thing, because the 3 issues going to cover are The Incredible Hulk issue number 445, Iron Man issue number 332, and Avengers issue number 402. Now, here's the catch. The last 2, Iron Man and Avengers, these were their last issues leading into Heroes Reborn. And what I mean by that statement is that their titles were officially canceled and relaunched in that new reality. For the Hulk, his series kind of continue on for a tad bit more because they did things differently when it came to the Hulk. And I'll explain more of that later on in a different video. Now, these 3 issues are technically impact issues. And remember, impact issues are really more of us kind of seeing how the actions of Onslaught truly affect people across the world. Like, for example, when it came to Generation X, thanks to the actions of Onslaught, we had learned that for that particular team, they're technically sidelined it. When it came to Emma Frost, she wanted to make sure that her students are well protected from Onslaught and far away from him. So that was an impact issues. These 3 issues are the same thing, kind of like how are the actions of Onslaught truly affecting our heroes in different ways. Like, for example, when it came to the end of Phase 1, we had saw Onslaught go out of his way to release an EMP across New York City. Now, when he did that, everything across the city had officially shut down, including subway trains as well. And so for the Hulk right now, in the opening pages of his issue, we are currently seeing him trying to help people who are currently stuck inside a train. Get that train over to a nearby station, open up the doors to allow the folks to be free and try to get somewhere safe. Now, we also have to remember that when it comes to the Incredible Hulk, in his last chapter for this event back in Phase 1, he was being mind controlled by Onslaught to fight against Cable. Now, you had Cable and Storm being able to work together to, well, free the Hulk from his control. But for the Hulk right now, his main focus is to go after Onslaught. Like, he feels like they should go ahead and strike right now before Onslaught is officially ready for almost anything the heroes throw at him. Now, as we all know, it's not a Hulk book without good old Rick Jones. And so we see Rick Jones is not in New York. Matter of fact, he's in LA. Now, when it comes to Rick Jones, he's trying his best to get over to New York because he feels like he should be there alongside with the rest of the heroes. Except by this point in Marvel Comics, when it came to Rick Jones, he was married to Marla Jones. And so for Marla, she's kind of like, dude, no. First off, how dare you try to sneak away from me to come to the airport to get a flight over to New York? Like, how dare you? But also, I don't want you going over there because there's a possibility that you might die. I need you here. You're my husband. Like, I want to be with you and to hopefully start a family. And so you do have the two characters go back home because, well, she drags him away. Now, I kind of want to go ahead and switch back over to the Hulk. And the reason why, because you have the Hulk meeting up with the Avengers at this one particular location that's currently being used as their base, but also give people a safe place to stay. Now, with that being said, we also see here that the Avengers and the Hulk are technically not on the same page here. Like, there is some bad blood between the two parties at the moment. Now, for Falcon, he's the only Avenger who's not really like, against the Hulk. And I'll explain here why in a moment. But when it comes to the Hulk, he's kind of like, this is the perfect time to actually attack Onslaught and to hopefully bring him down once and for all. Now, of course, with Steve Rogers, he disagrees. He's like, no. There's no way that you believe that we are ready to go up against a powerful being like that. That is the wrong move to take here. And the reason why you have Steve Rogers disagreeing with the Hulk here is because to the Hulk, he believes if they attack Onslaught right now before he is officially ready, then most likely they can bring him down. But for Steve Rogers, he's saying like, that's a bad idea. Like, one, I already believe that when it comes to Onslaught, he's ready for us. Like, look at his base. It's slowly growing and getting bigger and bigger in the middle of the city. But also, it's Steve saying, like, I feel like Onslaught is ready for us. If we attack, it's a losing battle. So why don't we just stay here and wait until we are able to officially attack him? But the reason why Falcon is like the only one on Hulk's side is because, well, when it came to Falcon's nephew who died by AIDS, a previous storyline in the Hulk series, you had Hulk be there for Falcon's nephew. And so ever since that moment right there for Falcon, Hulk had gained his respect. Now, for the Hulk, he's not going to wait until the heroes are supposedly ready. He believes the right time is here and now. And so you have the Hulk walk away, but you do have different people go with him. So for example, you have Falcon, Hawkeye, you also have Vision. At the very last second, you also have Crystal go as well. Now, for the rest of our heroes, they're going to be in a different type of situation, but we won't see them until Avengers issue number 402. Now, for the Hulk here, he does have a game plan here. His game plan is to basically go underground and just break his way through the bottom of the citadel that belongs to Onslaught. Now, technically that may work, but you see, for Onslaught, he already realized that he may have some visitors very soon. Now, for Betty Brant, or Betty Banner, Bruce Banner's wife, we do see that for Betty, she's watching the news. And with her watching the news, it's her kind of realizing that, well, the Hulk is alive and nearby. And so she kind of has hope in the possibility that she may be able to get back with Bruce. But getting back over to Hulk and his team, it kind of leads into the ending of this chapter right here, where you do have the Hulk believe that they were able to capture Onslaught by surprise. And so once you have the Hulk going first, the rest of his team tries to move in to bring Onslaught down. But they officially fail. You see, you have Vision die just like that. You didn't have Hawkeye and Falcon die just like that, leaving Hulk and Crystal. Sorry, I forgot. Crystal also dies just like that. So just leaving the Hulk behind. And so you do have the Hulk being able to beat down over and over and over on Onslaught. And so for the Hulk, it does look like he won. But here's the thing. Onslaught did that on purpose. And the reason why, Because with Onslaught playing mind games on the Hulk and his crew, what he wanted to do was to show Hulk's crew, like, look, this man does not truly care for you at all. You guys could possibly die, and he would still fight on and be happy about the fact that he was able to accomplish his goal. He does not care for you at all. And so, of course, that right there breaks the team apart. They're kind of like, wait, first off, he played mind games on us to make us believe that we were able to get the jump on him. But on top of that, he showed us that you don't truly care for us at all. Like, you will let us die to possibly bring him down. It's kind of wild. And so this kind of leads us into the ending of this chapter where you have the Hulk go back to the rest of the Avengers. And he does admit to Steve Rogers, like, hey, you know what? You're right. Like, this is not the right time. But he does not tell Steve Rogers why he has a change of heart. But this is where we're going to end this chapter and now move on to the next one, which is an Iron Man issue. Now, when it came to Iron Man issue number 332, this was officially the last issue of Volume 1 when it came to Iron Man, because shortly after Onslaught, we had the whole Heroes Reborn universe given to us, where you had some heroes basically disappear from the main Marvel timeline and went into a brand new timeline. And so when it came to Iron Man, he was one of those characters. And so when that happened, his book got canceled, but he was given a brand new book with his brand new life in that brand new reality. But getting back over to the main storyline, we're picking up with Iron Man, Giant Man, and Quicksilver. Now, for these three characters, they're right now trying to find a power source for the psi armor suit that was mentioned in the Xavier protocols. Remember, when it came to Excalibur issue number 100, we had learned that Charles Xavier had a thing called the Xavier protocol. Basically, he had different files on each member of the X-Men of how to bring them down just in case they ever turn, well, evil, including himself. And so for our heroes, they realized that he had mentioned something called the psi armor. The problem is that they need a power source for it. Now, with that being said, we also have to remember that there are sentinels right now just roaming across the city that is currently being controlled by, well, Onslaught, who's now attacking anybody in New York City, including the Avengers as well. And so for our heroes at the moment, they kind of got to hide from the Sentinels, but at the same time still accomplish their goal. But you did have our heroes be confronted by Black Panther. Now for Black Panther, he's here to kind of help our heroes and guide our heroes to a location that belongs to him and his people, where basically he's holding on to equipment, but also a power source that could basically help Iron Man build psi armors for every single hero who might be going up against Onslaught very soon. The problem is that while you have Black Panther trying to lead them over to that location, that is when our heroes get attacked by the Sentinels. Now, you do have Giant Man stay behind, and the reason why, because with his ability to, make himself larger than normal, he should be able to take on the Sentinels, but to buy the rest of the heroes enough time to get over to Black Panther's location to figure out what kind of equipment that he's currently holding on to, but also what is that power source that could basically help our heroes win against Onslaught as well. Now, when we switch back over to Iron Man, Quicksilver, and also Black Panther, they do arrive at this underground tunnel. Now, of course, for the two heroes from America, they feel like, hey, this is illegal. Like, why in the world do you have some kind of underground tunnel that's basically locked up? We kind of find out that this is the Wakandan embassy. But either way, once you do have our heroes get inside, you have our heroes see all these different types of equipment. And for Iron Man, this is great. This is perfect. And the reason why, because now he can get to work on building the psi armor to help the heroes defeat Onslaught. Now, for the next few pages, you kind of had a story jump back and forth between different settings. So, for example, we do get a page where it's right now Giant Man trying his best to fight against the Sentinels, but the man is barely being able to hold on because these things are just with so many different types of weapons. It's kind of hard for him to overcome what he's currently fighting against at the moment. But as we get back over to the rest of our heroes, we do learn what that power source that Black Panther plans on giving over to Iron Man to build a side armor for every single hero going up against Onslaught. And of course, there's no surprise at all, it's vibranium. And of course, Black Panther is holding onto a huge pile of it. So of course, for Tony Stark, he can now get to work in building all these different side armors for all the different heroes. But as we get back over to the battle between Giant Man and also the Sentinels, we see that he is officially defeated by the Sentinels. Like I said earlier, the dude was barely holding on, but luckily for him, you had Quicksilver go back to help him out and get him away from the Sentinels, but of course at the very last second. But as we get back over to Iron Man and also Black Panther, we do learn that they were able to finish the project just in time. And the reason why, because you had the Sentinels find them and try to attack them. Now for our heroes, they do dip out and they do go their separate ways. But for Iron Man, he does go to regroup with Giant Man and also Quicksilver. When he does, he shows us and them that he was able to make the side armors for all the different heroes who will be going up against Onslaught very soon at the end of this crossover. And so really, that's it for his chapter in this crossover. But again, this was the last issue for Iron Man back in 1990s. Now, when it came to Avengers issue number 402, this was also the last issue for volume 1 of the Avengers, leading into Heroes Reborn. And so when it came to this issue right here, it kind of starts off the same way for the Hulk, where basically, thanks to Onslaught, his EMP, shutting down all the power across New York City, you had folks still trapped inside subway trains across New York. And so you have the Avengers right now working together to kind of help get the people to a nearby subway station, but to also free them from the train as well. Now, of course, these people are just running like crazy because they were trapped inside a subway for who knows how long, hours, 3, 4, 5, could be more than that. But thankfully, the Avengers had arrived to help them out. Now, when you do have the Avengers being able to get back over to the surface, we are kind of given a few more examples of like how crazy the city had truly become thanks to Onslaught just releasing that EMP in the ending of phase 1 of this crossover. So you have the Avengers right now just trying their best to figure out what to do here and how to help out all these different groups of people who are basically trapped in all these different types of places. Now, you do have the Avengers kind of wonder like, where in the world is Black Widow? Because she was supposed to be here by the time they got there as well. And I kind of like this a lot because it kind of shows that when it comes to an incident like this, people are going to go crazy left and right. And unfortunately for Black Widow and for the Avengers, they really can't do anything about that. All they can do is just be there for the folks who are freaking out, because you have all these different people just grabbing Black Widow left and right because they want her help for different types of reasons. Like, hey, I want to get out of here, or my wife is trapped, or I can't find my kids. But you do have Steve Rogers being able to pull Black Widow away from those crowd of people. But right after she does that, we're kind of given this idea that Steve Rogers just scared. Like, he's freaking out because all this chaos happening across New York is just too much for him to handle. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the case. Like, literally, it's Steve Rogers at the moment just kind of figuring out what to do here. Like, how can he truly be a hero to these people? How to help these folks out the best he can. But for Wasp, she believes that Steve Rogers is freaking out because he's not really able to give answers or directions on how to handle different things popping up left and right across the city. But while you have that going on, you didn't have Iron Man appear. And of course, Giant Man and also Quicksilver. So this kind of brings in the whole idea of what happened in Iron Man, where you do have Iron Man bring over the side armors for the different heroes to use as they get ready for their final battle against, of course, Onslaught very soon. But while you have the heroes right now being amazed by Iron Man's work, You did have our heroes be confronted by Post and also Holocaust. Now, these are two characters who are really powerful, who are working for Onslaught at the moment, and of course, giving our heroes a hard time here. And so for our heroes, they're really struggling when it comes to fighting against, well, Post and Holocaust. Now, for Wasp, she does look at Steve Rogers for some kind of answer here, like, hey, Steve, how in the world can we handle this situation? The problem is that for Steve, at first, he's completely frozen. And then he says, we can't win against them. We can't beat them. And for the Wasp, it kind of seems like it's him officially kind of giving up here. But that's not the case, because for Steve Rogers, he never backs down so easily. Because for Steve Rogers, he understands what they have to do here if they want to win. And so you have Steve making sure that Holocaust hits Post. With Post now out of the way, then our heroes have the ability to gang up on Holocaust to hopefully bring him down, which they are able to do. And so it kind of shows like, yeah, for Steve Rogers, he knew he couldn't beat them head on, but he knew as soon as one of them is able to take the other one out, the last one will be easier to take out if we all just gang up together. And so for Steve Rogers, kind of shows that he's still a great leader of the Avengers. Now, with all that being said, you then have our heroes just gang up on Holocaust and being able to defeat him. But this kind of leads us into the ending of the video, because once you do have our heroes being able to defeat both Post and Holocaust, you then have our heroes get a message from Onslaught on a TV screen where it's basically him saying like, hey, listen guys, so you may defeated them, but there's no way that you'll be able to bring me down. If we do fight, it will be your final battle. And so of course for our heroes, they're kind of like, listen, if it is our final battle, we're going to make sure we at least bring you down. Okay, so we're kind of at that point where when it comes to our coverage over the Onslaught event, we're going to see a lot of different Marvel characters being affected by this event in different types of ways. Now, here's the thing, because this event is technically a Avengers, Fantastic Four, X-Men event, but you still have other heroes getting involved, because when it came to Onslaught, this man is right now attacking all of New York. And so the question is, how are other characters in New York who had a book around this time being affected by this event, like the Green Goblin or Spider-Man and even the Punisher? And so this is us picking up with Punisher issue number 11 to kind of see what is the Punisher doing when it comes to Onslaught attacking New York. And really, the first few pages of the storyline kind of give us the answers that we were looking for, because we pick up with the Punisher kind of wishing that he had a bigger weapon. And the reason why, because hell heck, you got Sentinels right now just walking across New York, because when it came to Onslaught, he took over the Sentinels, reprogrammed them to not go after mutants, but to now go after humans. And so right now for the Punisher, he realized things are popping off left and right across New York. Now, he also realized that S.H.I.E.L.D. is here as well. But here's the thing. Their helicarrier is not being attacked right now by the Sentinels. It seems like they're able to just fly by without being noticed. And that all changes in a matter of moments. And the reason why, because as soon as you had G.W. Bridges, who's technically in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the moment, because by this point in Marvel Comics, the Punisher had quote unquote killed off Nick Fury. And so right now, G.W. is in charge. Either way, when it came to G.W., he wanted to send out some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to kind of bring order back into New York to help out the heroes. The problem is that as soon as you had these agents fly by these Sentinels, they're kind of like, oh, look, we now have brand new targets. We have to kill them. Where are they coming from? Oh, that helicarrier. we got to bring that down as well too. And so just like that, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier is being attacked by the Sentinels, and it goes down fast. So just like that, S.H.I.E.L.D. is right now in some big trouble at the moment. Now for the Punisher, he's nearby. And for the Punisher, he's kind of like, listen, there's some bad blood right now between me and S.H.I.E.L.D. because, well, I did supposedly kill off Nick Fury. But at the same time, I just can't sit here on the sideline watching them trying to survive in the middle of the body of water they're in right now at the moment. Like, they need some help. And technically, he's right, because it's the Punisher saying, like, scavengers are going to try to steal things from the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. And matter of fact, as we get into the next section, we pick up with the Junkyard Dogs. Now, this group right here, they work for the mob, but they're kind of tired for working for the mob. So why not go ahead, swing your way over to the helicarrier and steal some nice weapons to use against your enemies, including the mob who currently control you at the moment. And so you had a small gang right now heading their way over to where the helicarrier had crashed. Now for S.H.I.E.L.D., they see them coming and they begin to freak out a tad bit. And for G.W. Bridges, that now gives him another reason why to get away from the helicarrier, because if they stay, they're basically sitting ducks. But also because when it came to G.W. Bridges, what he did was he told the helicarrier to begin the self-destruct sequence. That place is going to blow up very soon. And so he now has to hurry, get all his people out of there, but also defend them against the Junkyard Dogs and get far away from the helicarrier. But luckily for S.H.I.E.L.D., Punisher does arrive. Now, the rest of this book is really more of us just seeing the Punisher helping out S.H.I.E.L.D. to fight back against the Junkyard Dogs, but to also get the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents away from the helicarrier. And so you do have S.H.I.E.L.D. and GW and also Punisher being able to complete all the different objectives just like that. But here's the thing, because this issue alone is also setting up the next storyline that came right after this one. Now, we can start covering some Punisher stories on the channel, but either way, it's right now GW telling Frank, like, hey, listen, you owe us one. Like, you did kill off Nick Fury, even though technically you were not right in the head, but you do owe us one. I do have a mission for you. And so you do have Frank agree to take the mission. But now we kind of transition over to X-Men issue number 19. Now, when it comes to issue number 19, it's really more of us seeing the storyline picking up where we left off at when it came to Nate Gray in X-Force. Because remember, when it came to the early parts of this crossover, you had the X-Men tell X-Force, you are supposed to guard Nate Gray, because they believe Onslaught would sooner or later come for Nate Gray and try to grab him. Now for X-Force, they were on guard. The problem was that he was taken away by Mr. Sinister, who was then able to shut down the powers of Nate Gray. Now this issue right here will kind of explain how he was able to shut down the powers of Nate. But when it comes to Mr. Sinister, he's telling Nate Gray right now, like, I know where you're from. I know almost everything about your reality. I know that technically you are a child of Scott Summers and of course Jean Grey. Now for Mr. Sinister, he wants to use Nate Gray as a weapon against Onslaught. But for Nate Gray, as we already know, he hates the idea of being used as a weapon. Now, there was another character who was somewhat close to Cable. Sorry, Nate Gray. Nate Gray is the counterpart to Cable, but there was another character who was close to Nate Gray, and that was Trinity. Now, when it came to her, she was technically working for Mr. Sinister, but she kind of moved away from him to go find Nate Gray to hopefully use Nate Gray as a way to protect her from Mr. Sinister. The problem was that when they arrived in New York, they went their separate ways. For Nate Gray, he went to go find the Avengers. She hid somewhere, but unfortunately, she was found by the Marauders. As we all know, Marauders work for Mr. Sinister. Now, as we all know, this is now phase 2 of this crossover. So right now for Onslaught, he's just wrecking New York completely. But here's the thing, because by this point in our coverage, he has merged with Franklin Richards. And when it comes to Franklin, he's calling out for help, a psychic call for help. And so, of course, that call does go straight over to Nate Gray. Now, for Nate Gray, he has no idea who Franklin Richards is, but he kind of realized there's somebody out there calling for help. But here's the thing, because for Nate Gray right now, as he hears Mr. Sinister talking, we do learn how he was able to learn almost everything about the age of apocalypse reality. But on top of that, how he was able to shut down the powers of Nate, how he was able to send a feedback in the mind of Nate Gray when it came to Nate using his abilities. All because of Trinity. And the reason why, because when you had Nate Gray go into her mind, well, she had devices on her head that came from Mr. Sinister. You see, for her, she did not have the ability to control her powers. You see, for her, she has the ability to absorb energy from people who are dying. And once she does absorb too much energy, she has to release it. And so when it came to Nate Gray, when he went into her mind, those devices on her head that helped her control her abilities allowed Mr. Sinister to go into her mind, to go into his mind, to map out how his mind works. And so that is how Mr. Sinister was able to learn everything about Nate Gray. But this is where you kind of had the story wrap up very quickly here. And the reason why I'm saying that, because when it comes to Trinity, she is able to break free by grabbing a rat, killing that rat, and absorbing the energy of that dead rat. When she does, she can use that energy as a blast to break her binds off. The problem is that while she's trying to escape, well, she's then confronted by no other than the Marauders. But here comes the big catch, because before you have Marauders do anything to her, something or someone else comes behind them and takes them out. But before we are able to learn who helped her out or possibly capture her, we jump back over to Nate Gray. Now for Nate Gray, he realized that his mind has healed up, which means that Mr. Sinister is no longer able to shut his powers off or cause pain in his mind when Nate Gray used his abilities. But here comes the big ending though, because for Nate Gray, he sees this child just coming out of nowhere. This portal opens up and his child appears. It does seem like it's Franklin Richards calling out for help. But for Mr. Sinister, he realized that's not Franklin at all. It's matter of fact a trick. But before Nate is able to realize it is a trick, he's then grabbed by Onslaught and taken away just like that. And so now for Onslaught, he has Nate Gray, he has Franklin Richards, and things got a whole lot worse for our heroes. Okay, so man, I never thought I would sit down and actually talk about this series that came out in the late 1990s, but we technically have to, and the reason why, because it's part of our coverage over the Onslaught event, especially when it comes to Phase 2. And I am talking about the Green Goblin series. Yes, you heard that right. In the late 1990s, Marvel gave Green Goblin his own series. But here's the thing, because it's not Norman Osborn, and it's definitely not Harry, because Harry's dead at this point in time. It is actually a different Green Goblin. And that would be Phil Urich, the nephew to Ben Urich, who's very close to Daredevil and also, of course, to Peter Parker, but also works at the Daily Bugle. Now, before we dive into the storyline, I kind of want to explain the whole idea of Phil Urich and how he became the Green Goblin in the late 1990s. You see, when it came to Marvel Comics, they gave us Phil Urich in Web of Spider-Man issue number 125. Here's the catch. When he appeared, he was just the Green Goblin. We had no idea who was this new Green Goblin just flying around New York. it wasn't until Green Goblin issue #1 we learned that it was Phil Urich. Now, in that issue, we did learn that when it came to Phil and Ben, they were investigating something going on at Oscorp Tower, where unfortunately they were attacked by some random thugs. Now, when it came to Phil, he found the Green Goblin gear, but also the formula, and technically he fell into the formula. And so with the gear and also now the formula inside of him, he became the brand new Green Goblin and tried to use the tech as a way to scare away the thugs to protect his uncle. Now, after that, when it came to the Green Goblin series, it was always kind of him deciding like if he wanted to be a hero or not. It wasn't until someone tried to assassinate his uncle, where of course he teamed up with Daredevil and decided like, you know what? It's better for me to be a hero. So for a short period of time, you had a Green Goblin out there just being a hero and working alongside with other characters like Daredevil, Spider-Man, Scarlet Spider, and the list goes on and on. But by this point in his series, he got pulled into the Onslaught crossover. And this is kind of sad because when it came to the Green Goblin series, this is issue #12, and the series ended with issue #13. So this is the second to last issue of this series where unfortunately it was canceled. Now, when it came to Phil and Ben, they were in the middle of New York when things just popped off. You had Onslaught just sent out Sentinels across New York City. And remember, he had reprogrammed the robots to no longer attack mutants, but to now attack humans. But on top of that, he had released this powerful EMP across the entire city. And so for Phil and also Ben, they're kind of like, okay, things are truly popping off here. Like, what in the world can we do? What should we do? And so you have our two characters head over to the Daily Bugle because for Ben, he works there. It makes the most sense. And when they get back to the Daily Bugle, you have JJ, Robbie, and also Ben being able to talk to one another about what is exactly happening right now in New York City. But while they're talking to one another, it gives us a chance to see some support characters around Phil besides his Uncle Ben. So for example, we have a character known as Meredith Campbell or Lynn Wash. Now these characters, they both work at the Daily Bugle as well. Now you do have Phil also hearing that you have other heroes out there in New York right now just trying their best to help out with this situation. The Avengers, Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and you also have the New Warriors as well. Now for Phil, he kind of feels bad about the idea that he's not out there right now helping out the other heroes. He hates the idea that technically he is stuck on the sideline while all of this is happening across New York. Now that is when you have Robbie Robertson say, you know what, if you feel bad about that, how about this? You can help out here. And so you have Robbie tell Phil to make copies for the Daily Bugle. Now that is when you have the Daily Bugle get attacked by a Sentinel. Now with this happening, of course you have JJ believe that this is Onslaught trying to silence the media. Now when it comes to Phil's support characters, they want a better view of what exactly happening across New York. And so even though right now there is this Sentinel attacking their building, they go to the rooftop to get a better look of the city to see what's truly happening across the city. Now while doing that, you have one of the girls realize the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, they're out there and they're trying to head somewhere to hopefully end this whole conflict. And so once you have Phil also see the Avengers, the Fantastic Four flying across the city, he's kind of like, you know what? It's time for me to go ahead and take my part alongside with the heroes to handle this situation. And so he calls over his Green Goblin gear to go be the Green Goblin hero. And so once you have Phil put on his Green Goblin gear, he does try his best to fight against a Sentinel that's currently attacking the Daily Bugle. Here's the problem though. All his different weapons are not really able to do anything at all when it comes to bringing down this one particular Sentinel. Now, when it comes to Phil Urich, he is a tad bit different from Harry and also Norman Osborn. And let me explain. You see, when it comes to Phil Urich, he also gained ability the other two don't have. Now, he calls this brand new power lunatic left, but in reality it's kind of like this sonic attack, and so he also tries to use that power on this Sentinel. The problem is that it doesn't work, and so you had a Sentinel being able to attack Phil and make him crash in a nearby alley. And this kind of leads into the point of the story where you have Phil kind of wondering like, okay, should he continue as a hero? Because he just failed when it came to fighting against just one particular Sentinel. Like, what in the world can he do when he faces bigger challenges down the road as a hero? And so he begins to think about different people in his life, starting off with his family. Now, for Phil, his entire family, like his mother, father, and his brother, they kind of look down on him. Only his uncle was always in his corner. But he also begins to think about other heroes that he had met. Spider-Man, Scarlet Spider, Daredevil, and the list goes on. And so he kind of realized that, yes, even though he did not ask to be a hero, even though he did not ask to have all these responsibilities as a hero, the mask, the Green Goblin mask, belongs to him. He loves the idea of being a hero. He hates the idea of being a loser. He's not a quitter. And so it's him saying, I got to continue on because I am the Green Goblin. And so this kind of leads into the ending for this particular storyline for Green Goblin, because you do have Phil being able to go back over to the Sentinel, and he was able to bring it down, but only because he has sacrificed his glider as a way to damage the head of the Sentinel. Now, the explosion of the Sentinel did send a few debris to kind of hit him in the mask. But of course, his mask is not completely wrecked, but it is somewhat wrecked. And so for Phil, he's kind of wondering, with his glider gone and his mask ruined, can he continue on as the Green Goblin? And so this leads into the final issue of the series, where we're kind of left to wonder, will Phil continue to be a hero as the Green Goblin? Now, this kind of leads into Fantastic Four issue number 416. Now, this was the final issue of volume 1 of the Fantastic Four, because as we all know, when it came to the Onslaught event, you had certain characters go away into a brand new reality, better known as Heroes Reborn. Now, there are also some things happening behind the scenes when it came to Marvel Comics, but I'm not going to sit down and try to explain all of that. But either way, when it came to some characters, they all just disappeared into the Heroes Reborn's universe. And so with that happening, all the books those heroes were a part of, they all got canceled. The Avengers, Iron Man, Thor, the Fantastic Four, they all were canceled at the very end point of the Onslaught crossover. So this was the final issue for volume 1 of the Fantastic Four. And it's kind of cool because this one particular issue is bringing together all the different characters who were very important in Fantastic Four comics, starting off with Dr. Doom. You see, you have Doom right now being informed about what is happening over in New York. Like, hey, you got Sentinels attacking the humans. We believe this guy known as Onslaught is the one controlling the Sentinels. But you didn't have this guy tell Dr. Doom, like, oh, by the way, this Onslaught guy was able to kidnap Franklin Richards. Now, let me tell you, for Dr. Doom, once he heard that one line right there, he's kind of like, hold up, you're going to tell me that guy right there has Franklin Richards, my #1 enemy's son? Hold up, I need to go to New York right now. When it comes to the Fantastic Four, they're back at their base with a few members of the X-Men and also a few members of the Avengers as well. But here's the thing, because for the Fantastic Four, they're kind of wondering, like, what should they do next? Like, they have tried so many different things to hopefully get Franklin Richards back, but unfortunately, they're not strong enough to bring down a powerful being like Onslaught. But now you also have the team kind of wondering, is there a possibility their son is still alive? Now, you also might see Beast on the screen at the moment, and you're kind of wondering, is this Dark Beast or regular Beast? This is regular Beast. By this point in the Onslaught crossover, you had X Factor being able to save the real Hank McCoy from the Dark Beast Hank McCoy from the Age of Apocalypse reality. But either way, you also have Nathaniel Richards tell Reed, listen, I saw the future, and I know that in your future, you guys are going to die by the hands of Onslaught. Is him saying, do not try to go up against that guy. Now, when it comes to Franklin Richards, we see him trying to send out a projection to his parents to kind of tell them hey, I'm alive, but also I need your help at the moment. Now, here's the thing, because for Franklin, he's still deep inside a citadel that belongs to Onslaught. And for Onslaught, he sees what Franklin is trying to do. And so for Franklin, he has no idea that Onslaught had just altered what Franklin was trying to do. He lets the call go out to reach the Fantastic Four, but he kind of changes the actual purpose of this projection that Franklin was trying to send. Now, the next page for me I kind of like, and here's the reason why, because it's Susan and Reed having this conversation. And for Susan, she kind of feels like she is a failure. And the reason why, because, Franklin Richards has been taken away from her. Now, for Reed and Susan, they're kind of wondering, if the life they chose was the right choice to make, because it was Reed, Susan, Johnny, and Ben who came together to create the Fantastic Four. And the thing is, now Franklin Richards is suffering from their choices to become heroes, to be a hero team out there who protects the world. And so now they're kind of what if we never did become the Fantastic Four? Would Franklin Richards suffer from our choices? Now for Reed, his main goal is to get their son back, but to also find a way to live a life where Franklin Richards will not be suffering from their choices. But this begins the part where you have all these different characters just popping up left and right to help out the Fantastic Four. For example, you have the Puppet Master and also Alicia Masters appear. Now, for Alicia Masters, she is the stepdaughter to the Puppet Master. But either way, he came there to help out the Fantastic Four with this situation. Now, for Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters, they were kind of on the rocks here. So we're kind of seeing the two characters being able to have a conversation with one another, with the possibility of the two characters getting back together. But then we have to jump over to Christophe Bernard and also Cassie Lang. Now, Cassie Lang being the daughter of Scott Lang, enough said right there. But for Christophe Bernard, I'm not really going to sit down and try to explain the whole idea of this character. And the reason why, because there is a lot that goes into this character. Just know that there was a point in time where he truly believed that he was Dr. Doom, but in reality, he wasn't Dr. Doom. And once you had the real Dr. Doom return back to Earth, you had Christoph realize that he wasn't Dr. Doom and left Latveria. And so currently, he's with the Fantastic Four and watching over Cassie Lang. But while doing that, he's then confronted by Kang the Conqueror. Now for Kang the Conqueror, he of course from the future, one of the many futures of the Marvel Universe. But either way, for Kang the Conqueror, he came here to supposedly fight against Dr. Doom, believing that Christoph is Dr. Doom. But once you have Christoph being able to get a hit on Kang the Conqueror, he just disappears. And you have Christoph wondering what in the world is going on. And that kind of trend continues on for our heroes, because when we jump over to Ben Grimm and also Alicia Masters, while they're having this conversation about the idea that Ben Grimm now has the ability to turn back into his human form, they're then confronted by this creature that's currently being controlled by the Psycho Man. Now, we had just recently talked about this character, but I don't want to sit down and explain who the Psycho Man is, and here's the reason why. Because we're going to see a whole lot more of different villains just popping up left and right. Different characters the Fantastic Four fought over the years, including the Psycho Man as well. And that trend continues on when we jump over to the Human Torch and also Lila. Because with these two characters, they're right now trying to fix their relationship. In one of my earlier videos, I kind of mentioned the fact that they have a very toxic relationship, and that is the honest truth right there. But while you have the characters trying to fix their relationship, they're then confronted by the Power Scroll, the Super Scroll. Now, luckily for our heroes, they do get some backup here, and that would be the Inhumans. And you kind of see a trend happening right here, where you have all of these characters just popping in left and right out of nowhere. Good characters and bad characters who all appeared in the Fantastic Four comics, who have worked alongside our heroes or fought against our heroes. Like, we do see Namor arrive, and I kind of like this a lot because for Namor and Reed, there is a lot of bad blood between the two characters, but at the same time, they still have respect for one another. With Namor being there, is Namor right now just backing up our heroes as they're fighting against all these different types of super villains. But it's also Reed asking Namor to watch over Sue while he tries his best to figure out what exactly is going on here. Now, in the middle of the whole battle, you did have Dr. Doom appear. Now, when Dr. Doom appears, it's him telling the Human Torch, like, listen, I'm not on the side of Onslaught. Matter of fact, I came here to have a conversation with Reed Richards. But before we see that conversation actually happen, you have Reed being able to create a device to get rid of all the different projections or constructs that were created by, well, Onslaught. But here is the big catch, because for Reed, he believes at first that these constructs or projections came from Onslaught, which he is correct, but actually it came from Franklin Richards at first, but then altered by Onslaught. Now, while you do have Reed and Susan talking to one another, you have Johnny bring in Dr. Doom. And this is Dr. Doom saying, like, I want to help out the Fantastic Four when it comes to bringing down Onslaught, because he has Franklin Richards. And so as the book closes, you have all these different characters who fought alongside the Fantastic Four over the years, including Dr. Doom as well, as they get ready for their final battle against Onslaught. So we had just wrapped up the Avengers and also now the Fantastic Four, leading into the Heroes Reborn universe. But this as we went through our coverage over the Onslaught saga, I kind of realized that I love the prologue. I love phase one, because phase one for me really was like each chapter, they just got bigger and bigger, crazier and crazier. Now, phase two is somewhat like that as well, but you do have some like random chapters that would have been okay if they weren't really part of this event, like Punisher. It was a cool chapter, but technically we didn't need that book. The same thing goes for Green Goblin and also for me, Generation X. Now, hear me out real quick. Generation X tie-ins to this event is pretty cool, I guess, because it's the whole idea of Emma Frost, and let me explain. You see, for Emma Frost, she kind of realized that things were popping off back in New York for the X-Men and also for the rest of the heroes as well. And so her main goal was to find a way to protect Generation X, her brand new group of students. And so she flew over to Canada as a way to protect them. Now, here's the thing, because this is a callback to the early days of X-Men and also New Mutant comics. Let me explain. You see, in that storyline, when it came to Emma Frost, she had another group of mutants that she was trying to teach, take care of, to help them grow with their abilities. The problem was they all died. Not all of them, I think like 2 or 3 had survived, like for example, Empath and also Warpath. But most of the Hellions were killed off. Now, technically for Emma Frost, she had no idea at first they all had been killed off because she was in a coma. Once she did come out of that coma and she had discovered what happened to her old group, it broke her. And so when she was given the chance to teach a new group, she said, you know what? It's time for me to protect this group no matter what. And so she flew over to Canada. And really, when it came to Emma Frost, she made sure to use her abilities on them as a way to kind of make them act and think differently than they usually do. And here's the reason why, because if these young mutants were able to think the way they usually do, to act the way they usually do, then most likely they would try to escape. They would try to fight back against her, and she can't have that. She's trying her best to protect them from the possibility of being killed or hurt by this powerful being known as Onslaught back in New York. But here's the thing though, because for Emma Frost, it's her kind of playing house with them as well. Like, she's really trying her best to keep them acting differently than they usually do. And matter of fact, she's in the kitchen right now trying to cook up breakfast for them. Now, apparently, she is a horrible cook. But again, it's her playing house, using her powers to keep them busy long enough until she can figure out what exactly is happening back in New York, but to also protect them. The problem is that when it came to Emma Frost, when she came back to her house with these kids, she had no idea or possibly forgotten that Toad was there as well. And so you have Toad hiding right now in a different part of her home, but he's right now using Toads as a way to watch Emma Frost, to watch the kids, to collect information on them. And these Toads or frogs go back over to him to relay what they had saw about Emma and also these students of hers. Now for Banshee, in the last chapter for this team, he was kind of sent away by Emma Frost. And so this is him trying his best to locate where Emma Frost is. Where is his missing students? Now, when it comes to Banshee, he went over to the old base of Alpha Flight. And here's the reason why I said the old base, because by this point in Marvel Comics, there is no longer an Alpha Flight team in Canada, really at all. And so for him, it's kind of like, great, I'm out of luck. But luckily for him, he does run into Sasquatch. Now, here's the thing. He's down to help out Banshee to find Emma Frost. But it's also Banshee realizing that there's something off about Emma Frost, and most likely it's not her fault. And the reason why, because he got a call from the X-Men about what's happening back in New York. So most likely he's kind of like, there is something off about her, but at the same time, she's probably just okay, but I gotta find her and my missing students. Now, for the missing students, Generation X, when we jump back over to them, they begin to realize there's something wrong with them. Like, their minds are screaming out like, hey, you're not acting your normal way. You're being affected. You're being controlled by somebody. You need to come back into your own reality. But at the same time, they also realize they're not really able to feel different types of emotions, just being happy. And that's truly it. Now, when it comes to the students, out of nowhere, a tree does fall into the building. Now, for the kids, they should be scared or at least somewhat freak out. But they're not. They're kind of like, hey, we're still happy, but at the same time, we shouldn't be happy. Like, what in the world is going on with us? But then you also have Toad appear. Now, when Toad appears, it's kind of him saying like, it's now time for me to attack you guys, but also using my army of frogs and toads as a way to attack you guys. So this kind of leads into the ending of this storyline, because we do pick up with, well, Emma Frost right now being confronted by 2 people who had always been working with her for like many years, right? Like as her drivers or bodyguards, whatever. They came to her and said like, hey boss, you didn't realize a tree fell down into your house? Like, that seemed kind of weird to us. And technically they're right, because when that tree fell down, she didn't move. She kept going on with her day. But after they left, You then have Monet being able to enter the mind of Emma Frost. Now, when she does that, it's Monet telling Emma, like, hey, listen, so I'm right now trying to free our minds because we're being attacked by Toad and all his frogs friends at the moment. And we can't fight back because, well, you are controlling us. You're forcing us to be happy at the moment. But it's also her telling Emma, like, the only reason why you're doing all of this for is because you're being somewhat influenced by Onslaught, because he is a pure psionic energy being. He has the ability to affect anybody who is a psychic. That means Jean Grey, Charles Xavier, Psylocke, Emma Frost, and also Chamber. And so right now is her saying, like, subconsciously you wanted to protect us from him, but the problem is you're going at it the wrong way. And matter of fact, you're about to get us killed right now by Toad and all his frogs. And so when we jump back over to the young mutants right now who are about to be attacked by Toad, we do learn how Toad was able to communicate with the frogs, how he was able to control them. He gained this ability by a character known as Surgeon. Now, when it comes to Surgeon, this is his only appearance ever in Marvel Comics, but he does have the ability to add on to mutant powers. So, like, if you're a mutant that has one power, he can most likely give you another ability on top of that. And so for Toad, he was able to gain the ability to communicate with the frogs and toads in this area. Now, with all that being said, you do have Emma arrive just in time to basically stop Toad. But this is a callback to the very early days of X-Men comics, because she said, Toad, let's not forget, you hated the idea of Magneto just lording over you. You hated the idea of the Hellfire Club declining your offer to join the inner circle. You hated the idea of all these people just mistreating you. And here you are right now mistreating my students. Now, once she's able to send Toad away, you have Sasquatch and also Banshee arrive. Now for Banshee, again, he's not really mad at Emma because he realized there's things popping off back in New York at the moment. And so because of that, he goes ahead and gives her a pass when it comes to the way she's been acting this entire time. But after doing that, the book kind of ends on that note right there, getting our kids ready for their next adventure after the storyline right here, but really after the Onslaught crossover. And so now we have to jump over to Amazing Spider-Man issue number 415. Now, when it comes to Spider-Man, he's one of the few characters to actually get 2 books in this crossover, while some of the other characters only got 1 chapter in this event. But here's the thing, because when it came to Peter Parker in the Amazing Spider-Man, he was still in the middle of the Clone Saga, and let me explain. You see, when it came to Marvel Comics, they were trying to make people believe that Peter Parker was not the real Spider-Man, that Ben Reilly was the real Spider-Man, and Peter Parker was the clone. On top of that, when it came to Peter Parker, he was still married to Mary Jane, and she was also pregnant, which is kind of like, okay, cool, that's a great thing. But for Peter around that time, his powers would disappear here and there. And so for Peter Parker, he never knew when his powers may be with him or possibly gone in the middle of the battle. And so when you have Peter and Mary Jane trying to go back home, well, the city is currently being popped off at the moment. You have sentinels just everywhere attacking people left and right. And Peter knows what he has to do. Get Mary Jane the heck out of there. And luckily for him, his powers are back at the moment where he can grab Mary Jane and get her the heck out of there. He also goes out of his way to save a child who had lost their parents. Now, this issue was also taking place around the same time as the Green Goblin issue. So, of course, you had Phil Urich being the Green Goblin and trying to be a hero. Well, not technically just yet. You see, this part of the issue takes place at the beginning part of that issue right there. So, currently, the Daily Bugle is being attacked by a Sentinel at the moment. Now, for a brief moment, we do switch over to, well, Ben Reilly. When it comes to Ben Reilly, around this time in Marvel Comics, he was the Spider-Man, right? Like the main Spider-Man. and he had his own support characters around him. And so with things popping off in the city, you have been trying his best to get those people somewhere safe. And while trying to do that, he leaves them behind and changes into his Spider-Man outfit to deal with the Sentinels. And so now we switch over to Peter Parker. Now for Peter, it's him right now trying to get Mary Jane somewhere safe. And the reason why, because they're being chased down once again by another Sentinel. Here is the thing though. You see, for this Sentinel, it does pick up two possible threats. The first is Peter Parker. The second is the baby that Mary Jane is pregnant with. And so it's kind of like, hey, here is a sign the child that she has right now might have powers down the road. As we all know, unfortunately, Mary Jane and Peter will not have a child together. Anyways, though, when it comes to Sentinel, it wants to target Mary Jane. But because Peter is there and you have Peter being able to show off all his abilities, for the Sentinel, it's kind of like, you know what? That person right there is second on my list. My main goal right now is him, Peter Parker. And so you have Peter trying his best to get the robot away from Mary Jane, while you have MJ head over to the Daily Bugle. Now for Peter, he's kind of struggling a tad bit, but while you have him trying to get away, just like that, his powers once again disappear. And so with his powers being gone, for the Sentinel, it no longer looks at Peter Parker as a threat. But on top of that, Mary Jane's gone now. So for Sentinel, it has to find somebody else to go after. And this kind of leads into the ending part of the Green Goblin issue, because as we switch over to JJ, is him trying to inspire all his different employees to stay here with him to make sure they are able to report what is happening across New York. But at the same time, it's him saying, like, if you want to leave, to go see your family, to go protect your family, you can go. And don't worry, I won't dock your pay at all. But if you want to stay, we gotta work. And so this part right here kind of picks up at the very end of the Green Goblin issue, where we see Green Goblin fighting against a Sentinel. But on top of that is JJ wondering, like, who the heck is that guy right there? And with the city popping off at the moment, you're going to have a few people out there who are going to try to, you know, steal some things as there's chaos happening across the city. And so we see a few thugs right now trying to rob a store. Now, luckily for the owner, Spider-Man does arrive, Ben Reilly. Now for Ben, he tells the thugs like, hey, listen, I'm not your main problem. That right there is your main problem. And just like that, another Sentinel appears. Now, before we see Ben Reilly being able to deal with that Sentinel, we jump back over to Peter and Mary Jane as they arrived at the Daily Bugle. Now, for Peter, his main goal is to get back out there to help out. Even though his powers are constantly disappearing, he gotta be a hero. But for Mary Jane, she'll stay behind and actually help JJ report about what's happening across New York. She gets on a typewriter. And so the last few pages of this storyline is just Ben Reilly, you know, being Spider-Man. We see him being able to bring down a Sentinel, but he also kind of hates the idea of these robots attacking New York all over the place. So his main goal is to just go out there and be that hero. And that really does wrap up this chapter of the Onslaught saga. Here's the thing, because there is another chapter for Peter Parker and Ben Reilly. The thing is, we gotta jump over to a different book first before we dive into that chapter right there. But with that being said, okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, really the Onslaught crossover, we're going to pick up with Wolverine issue number 105. Now, with this issue right here, we're technically picking up with Wolverine trying to help out people, because what happened at the very end of phase 1 of this crossover going into phase 2, because remember, when it came to Onslaught, he had released this powerful EMP across New York. It brought havoc across the entire city. But also, he had released Sentinels as well into the city. So right now you have the X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, really all the different heroes in New York just trying their best to help out innocent people, including Wolverine, who's not right now with the rest of the X-Men. He's just out there trying his best to help out the people who may need some help. And that is why this book is an impact issue. Now, there is a huge difference between impact and also phase books. Phase 1 and Phase 2 were technically used as a way to continue the main storyline in this crossover. When it comes to impact issues, they're really more of like the actions of Onslaught are truly affecting other people across the world. But how are those actions affecting other people across the world? Like, for example, when it came to Phase 2, most of Phase 2, for me personally, is just impact issues where you have different heroes, Green Goblin, Spider-Man, Punisher, those characters out there just trying their best to help out the people of New York. Because when it came to Onslaught, when he had released that EMP, it affected the entire city. Impact issues. And so that's why this one is also an impact issue, because it's Wolverine out there just trying to help out innocent people thanks to the actions of, well, Onslaught. And so as we get into the opening pages for this one particular issue, all we're seeing right now is Wolverine at first just trying to get inside this burning building. And the reason why, because a child is trapped inside that building. It's up to Wolverine to find a way to save the life of that child. And so once you have Wolverine being able to enter the building, find the child, and try his best to protect the child, he kind of realized that most of the exit the child knows, or at least Wolverine knows as well, have been officially blocked off thanks to the fire and the building falling apart. And so it does kind of seem like at first, most likely Wolverine is going to be burned alive alongside with this child, or at least the child's going to die and Wolverine's healing factor is going to bring him back to life. Anyways, though, you do have somebody being able to guide Wolverine out of the fire just in time to save his life, but also the child's life as well. Here's the thing though, this person is an old man. We already know it's Stick. It's kind of continuing the overall story where you have Elektra and also Stick trying to help out Wolverine here and put him on the right path. And I'll explain why here in a moment, but you do have Wolverine being able to grab the child and get the child out of the fire just in time. But you then have Wolverine go back inside the building to hopefully find the old man. Now we already know the old man is Stick. Here's the thing, because when it came to Elektra and Stick, their main goal was to help Wolverine stay on the right path, to help him realize that he's always going to be a man, that even though currently he's going through some kind of transformation that was supposed to turn him into a wild beast, a wild animal, it's not going to happen at all, as long as he realized that he is a man. He's not an animal. And this right here is kind of a callback to an earlier storyline that went on in the earlier parts of Wolverine comics. You see, when it came to Wolverine, really more Fatal Attractions, we saw Magneto rip off the adamantium off the bones of Wolverine. Here's the thing, because when it comes to Logan, we had learned that when he first gained his mutant ability, he was supposed to turn into this wild beast, this savage animal. But when it came to Weapon X, when they gave him his adamantium, it stopped that process. So when it came to Magneto ripping off that adamantium, that process was able to pick up again and continue to change him into this wild, savage beast we see at the moment. Now, technically, thanks to Elektra and a few other people, they put Wolverine on the right path again, where he will not act like a wild animal or a wild beast. He may look like one, but he'll still think and act like a man supposed to. And so the reason why Stick is here is technically telling Logan, like, hey, listen, like, Elektra and I can teach you almost everything we can to make you act and think like a man. But it comes down to you to make sure that you think and act like a man, that you don't basically slip up. Because if you do, then yes, you will turn into that wild beast, that savage animal. You gotta stay on the right path. You gotta stay focused and make sure you do that. And you then have Stick being able to guide Wolverine away from the burning building. Now, right after that, you then have the Human Torch appear. And when it comes to Johnny, he's here to recruit Wolverine for the big final battle against Onslaught, which we are getting very close to in a matter of, 1 or 2 or 3 videos. But either way, that wraps up this one particular issue. But this leads us into Amazing Spider-Man issue number 72. Now with this issue right here, this was the last chapter for Peter Parker in this event, but also the last chapter for a non-X character in this event as well. Now when it came to Peter Parker around this time in Marvel Comics, he believed that he was the clone and Ben Reilly was the real Peter Parker. Peter was married to Mary Jane and she was pregnant. On top of all of that, when it came to Peter Parker, his powers would disappear out of nowhere sometimes. So he could have his powers in the middle of a battle, and then sometimes they would just disappear out of nowhere. And matter of fact, in the last chapter we did for Peter Parker, he was fighting against a Sentinel, but then out of nowhere, his powers just disappear. Now, luckily for Peter Parker, it kind of worked out for him because for the Sentinel, he was no longer a threat. But yes, this is the last chapter for Spider-Man in this event and the last non-X character in this event as well. And really, when it comes to this one particular issue, it's really more of us just seeing Peter Parker just realizing that everything is still popping off across New York. You have Sentinels everywhere. You have people running for their lives because they have no idea what to do when it comes to all these different robots that's attacking all over the place. Now, when it comes to Mary Jane, she's safe for the time being. She's at the Daily Bugle. But for Peter Parker, he's just out there trying to get pictures of what's happening, but at the same time wants to help out people if his powers will allow him to help out other people. Now, while he's out there, he also sees Ben Reilly as well, who at this point was Spider-Man and Peter was just Peter Parker, and that was really it. And so while you have Ben out there trying to fight against the robots, he is somewhat struggling. And you do have Peter Parker try to jump in and help out Ben Reilly the best he can. And so he does try, but it does tick off Ben because Ben knows that when it comes to Peter powers, they come and go. But either way, while you do have Peter and Ben trying to get away, Ben is hit right in the middle of while he's trying to web swing. And so you have the two characters land in this smokestack. Now, this is a callback because when it came to Ben, when it came to Peter, their lives began in this smokestack together. Like the whole idea of who's the clone, Peter or Ben, it all began in this smokestack. But either way, you also, the book kind of show us that for Peter and Ben, they look at each other as brothers. Now, you do have Ben go out of his way to find a way out of the smokestack. But they both know the Sentinels are still trying to find them. And sooner or later, they're going to locate them. And so you have Ben say, Peter, go. Like, you're Peter Parker. You have a wife. You have a child on the way. You have an actual life. I don't really right now. Like, it's just me, and that's really it. You have people waiting for you. Go ahead and leave. And on top of that, you don't have your powers all the way. I'm Spider-Man. You're not. And so you have Peter leave and Ben stays behind to fight against the Sentinels. Now, this was a very short issue here. So by the end of this issue, it's really more of us just seeing Ben being surrounded by a bunch of Sentinels and being grabbed by one of them. And at first, it does look like he might die or possibly be just seriously injured. But you do have Peter come back for him, and you have Peter and Ben being able to work together as one. And with them doing that, it's the two heroes kind of like, okay, cool, you know what? Let's go ahead and work together to figure out how to bring down all the Sentinels across the board. Because for Ben and Peter, really more Peter, they heard about what's going on when it comes to Onslaught, that you have the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the X-Men trying to deal with that character. But for them right now, their main goal is to bring down all the robots across the city. But unfortunately, this is the end of this chapter right here for our two heroes. Okay, so it's time for us to go ahead and get back into our coverage over the Onslaught crossover as we dive into the second, really the last two chapters for phase 2. And then we get into the whole change of the Marvel universe for one particular year, better known as Heroes Reborn. But getting into these two chapters, we're going to start off with X-Men issue number 56. Now, this issue is all about Magneto and Rogue, it says as well, but really more of Magneto. And the reason why I say more Magneto than Rogue is because when it comes to Magneto, at this point in time, he was going with a name known as Joseph. And the reason why he was using that name is because he woke up one day and did not remember anything from his past at all. And so for him, he's hearing all these things he did in the past being Magneto, this evil person, an enemy of the X-Men, and done some horrible things across the world, but also he's part of the reason why we have Onslaught here at the moment. And so for Magneto, hearing all these bad things that he has done over the years is just eating away at him. But here's the thing, because you do have him and Rogue right now trying to work together. You have Rogue trying to get survivors away from the Sentinels, while you have Magneto trying his best to fight against this group of Sentinels. Here's the problem though, because for Magneto, or Joseph here, this is his first time, because this whole entire crossover has been him fighting against Sentinels. But for Magneto, he's beginning to learn that these robots were made to fight against mutants. And meaning that these robots know how to adapt. They know how to fight against low-level mutants and high-level mutants like Magneto. And so at first, he is so confident that he'll be able to take down these robots, but he's learning very quickly here that that's not going to be the case, that he is going to have a hard time. And so you do have these Sentinels being able to just beat down on Magneto. You have Rogue try to help out as well, but she also gets beat down as well. It gets to the point where we're kind of left to believe that they're officially dead. But then at the very last second, you then have Dr. Doom arrive. Now, when Dr. Doom arrives, it's freaking amazing. He's kind of like, I am here. I'm the best villain. I'm better than you, Magneto. I'm better than all these bad guys in New York City. But for Magneto, he's kind of surprised to see Dr. Doom here because he knows Dr. Doom is a bad guy. But you then have Steve Rogers appear. And for Steve, he's saying like, listen, when it comes to something like this, sometimes the most craziest alliance happens when it comes to an event like this. And so Doom being here may seem wild, but look around. It's complete chaos across the whole entire city. But it's also Steve saying like, knowing Dr. Doom, he wants to make sure the world is still around so that he'll then be able to rule over this world. But either way, you have Magneto expressing once again that he's very upset about the fact that he's somewhat responsible for the creation of Onslaught. But it's Steve saying like, listen, I know your past. I knew who you were before this. But seeing you now, the way you acting, the way you're trying to make sure that nobody dies under your watch is a great thing. But here's the thing though. When it comes to you trying to, confess your sins, don't come to me. Go to somebody else. Somebody else you need to talk to about your past mistakes. I'm not that person for you. Now, we're also getting reminded that when it came to Nate Gray, by this point in the crossover, he had been officially taken away by Onslaught. Here comes the big thing, because now we know why he took Nate Gray for. He wants to go into Nate Gray's mind to learn more about the age of apocalypse reality, because in that reality where Nate Gray is from, mutants were first class, humans were second class. And so for Onslaught, he wants to learn what happened in Nate Gray's reality that led to that point, so that the mutant race in this reality can be first class and humans can be second class. But this leads into a conversation between Magneto and also Charles Xavier. And man, let me tell you, this conversation is pretty important for me. Here's the reason why, because it's Magneto already admitting like He's at fault for the creation of Onslaught, only partially though. But it's also Charles Xavier saying it's also his fault in the creation of Onslaught as well. Because for Charles Xavier, it was him who shut down the mind of Magneto. And they kind of like, well, Charles had no choice there because Wolverine in the adamantium scene. But it's Charles saying that I thought because I had the power, I had the right to make that move. But in reality, I had no right to make that move. I made a mistake then. And so now it's Charles kind of admitting that if he did not do that, if he didn't let his darker side kind of come out and mix with Magneto's darker side, then most likely Onslaught would not be here right now. That matter of fact, New York would be safe at the moment. But either way, you do have Magneto leave to join the rest of the heroes for the final attack. Charles does not go. Well, Charles says he has his own part in the final attack against Onslaught here. But getting back over to Onslaught and also, well, Nate Gray, is Onslaught realizing what happened in Nate Gray's reality. Is him realizing that in that reality, even though mutants were first class, humans were second class, all of that fell apart thanks to the X-Men, thanks to a few other characters besides the X-Men as well. And so for Onslaught, he's saying like, you threw all of that away? Like you guys had the chance to be first class for who knows how long, and you threw it all away? And so now for Onslaught, this changes his entire plan. But you do have the heroes meeting up with one another, except while you have the heroes getting ready for the final attack, they have their psionic armor ready to go, you have Jean Grey realize Charles left. Charles took a vehicle or aircraft to go somewhere else. The question is now where? And we kind of find out what Charles did. You see, for Charles, he went over to where Onslaught was at. It's Charles saying like, listen, I know there has to be a small part of me still inside of you. And with that small part of me still inside of you, you will realize that killing off the human race is not going to make anything better for the mutant race at all. Now, you have Onslaught agree at first like, yeah, Charles, you know what? You're right. But you see, I changed my plan. I changed my ways. You see, now I'm not just going to go after humans. I'm now going to go after mutants as well. Nobody is going to survive. Not humans nor mutants. And this leads into the epilogue of this event. And guys, with that being said, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot. We still got one more chapter to cover. We got to cover X-Men Unlimited issue number 12. The actual final chapter to this crossover. You see, this entire issue is really more about the fact that we're trying to get Juggernaut back to the way he was before the whole idea of Onslaught. And let me explain, because when it came to us covering Age of Apocalypse, as soon as we had finished that storyline right there and began our way up to Onslaught, you had Onslaught being able to send Juggernaut flying across the entire country. And so when he had crashed in front of our heroes, it was kind of like, who had the power to send King Marco flying across the country? He said it was Onslaught. Ever since then, it was kind of like, man, the Juggernaut now seems a tad bit weak, like he's not his usual self. This storyline, its main goal is to get back to where we were when it came to his character. That is why as you get into the opening pages of the storyline, you're picking up with, well, Doctor Strange. Now, this is Doctor Strange arriving at the school of Charles Xavier. This part right here is really going to be him learning about Onslaught and what's happening back in New York, because when he arrives at the school of Charles Xavier, he realized the X-Men nor Xavier are there at the moment. But he has some kind of weird sense that there's something bad going on when it comes to magic. And so that is when he looks at the desk of Charles Xavier. What he sees is the Crimson Gem of Sidorak just sitting there like a paperweight. But also he realized who is trapped inside the gym, and that would be Cain Marko. Now, for Doctor Strange, you kind of realize for that to happen, somebody or something really powerful had to find a way to separate the gem from Cain Marko, but to also lock him inside of it. And so you have Strange being able to use his magic to figure out what exactly went down at the very beginning of this event. The whole idea of Onslaught being able to remove the gem from Cain Marko, but putting him inside of it. Now, for Doctor Strange, he tells us this is really a problem because with Cain Marko no longer in control of the gem, no longer holding on to it, there's a possibility that Sidorak will be able to come back to Earth. And so for Doctor Strange, he's right now trying his best to find a way to make sure that does not happen. But before you have Doctor Strange being able to do anything at all, that is when you have Gomor the Ancient appear. Now, when it comes to Gomor, we have met him in an earlier storyline dealing with the Crimson Dawn. The whole idea of using the Crimson Dawn to save the life of Psylocke. Now, when it comes to Gomor, he kind of realized also what's going on when it comes to the Crimson Gem. And so his main goal is to go inside there, help Cain Marko to bring Cain Marko back into, well, the Earth reality. But here's the thing. He wants to go by himself. Now, he also kind of hints at the idea of the reason why, because for Doctor Strange, Wolverine, and Archangel, they are the reason why Psylocke now has the Crimson Dawn. But also, they had Cross, the guardian of the Crimson Dawn, better known as Tar. Now, Tar will play a somewhat important role at the very end of this chapter. But either way, you do have Gomor go inside the actual gem. Now, once you do go inside the gem, the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, we kind of see Cain Marko going through this nightmare. Now, here's the thing about this nightmare, because it's him right now being unable to move. And here's the reason why. Because in this nightmare, his life went differently. And let me explain. You see, for Cain, he had found the Crimson Gem on accident. But in this nightmare, he's laying in the bed, unable to move his arms and legs. But you do have Charles Xavier arrive. Now, once Charles arrives, he informs us and also Cain Marko why he can't move in this nightmare. It's the nightmare saying like, yeah, you were part of the army. You were fighting in a war, except you went AWOL. And the thing was, you found this cave that held the Crimson Gem. The problem was it caved in. Bunch of rocks fell on you and crushed your body. And so, unfortunately for you, you can't move. You can't walk. And so, in this nightmare, he's just stuck. And it's Charles having to take care of him. And so, as the nightmare continues on, you have Charles Xavier just push Juggernaut around in the wheelchair. And we kind of find out he's not only taking care of Cain in this nightmare, he's also taking care of some characters like Jean Grey, Cyclops, Iceman, Beast, and Wolverine. But in this nightmare, they're not mutants. They're not freaks. Instead, they're kids who have physical disabilities or psychological disabilities as well. And so it's Charles right now trying to be their caretaker. Now, as the nightmare continues on, that is when you have Gomor appear. Now, once you do have Gomor appear, for Gomor, he knows what's going on with this nightmare. He knows who's controlling the nightmare. And that would be a character known as Spite. Now, when it comes to Spite, she is the sister to another character better known as Despair. Now, Despair is a character we have seen a few times in our coverage over the X-Men, but for Gomor, he knows that when it comes to Spite, she's working with Sidorak. And so she does leave. But she said, hey, listen, my master is not going to give up that easily. And the thing is for Gomor, he believes he can still take on Sidorak. But she says, you got lucky last time when it came facing him back on Earth. But she does leave. Now for Gomor, his next goal is to help Cain Marko get the heck out of here. The problem is that for Cain Marko, he has to trust Gomor to help him get out of here. Now, inside the gym, Cain Marko is powerless. He can't do really anything at all to Gomor. But either way, you kind of have Cain agree to go with Gomor as long as Gomor can help him to get the heck out of there. But while you have the two characters walking around the gym, they walk into the school of Charles Xavier, Xavier's mansion. Now, here's the thing, because as they walk inside, we kind of get the chance to relive the origin of Cain Marko, because we do learn here that for Cain Marko, growing up, he hated his father, but he also hated Charles Xavier. And let me explain why. You see, for Cain Marko, his father married Xavier's mother. But on top of that, when it came to Cain Marko's father, he had the ability to save Xavier's father. He chose not to. Xavier's father died and allowed Cain Marko's father to marry Xavier's mother. With all that being said, for a good while there, for Cain's father, his main focus was his experiments, but also Charles Xavier. He also discovered that Charles was special, of course, talking about the idea of his mutant ability. But for Cain, he kind of realized that his father's focus was always on Xavier and his experiments. And so it got to the point where there was a small explosion and of course a fire broke out. For Cain Marko's father, he grabbed Charles first before grabbing Cain. Now Cain right here believes if his father was able to grab him first and not Xavier at all, then most likely Cain Marko's father would still be alive. But because he tried his best to save both boys, unfortunately, he died. And so ever since then, for Cain Marko, he blamed Xavier for the death of his father. So you have Gomor tell Cain Marko, like, your hatred for your brother is consuming you. Once it does, there'll be nothing left of you at all. But it's also Gomor saying, like, your anger, your fear is blocking you from seeing the true goal that Sidorak had left out for you. Here's the thing, you have to let go of your past. Once you were able to do that, you then have the ability to get the heck out of here. And so once you have Cain kind of say, you know what, fine, I will let go of my past, a doorway begins to open up. But that is when you have Spike reappear. Now, when she does reappear, her main goal right now is supposedly help Cain Marko realize that Gomor is trying to trick him. She's saying, like, listen, he's right now guiding you in a different direction where you're going to end up powerless. And that's what he wants for you. But if you follow me, I can unlock the true power that has been kept away from you. And of course, for Cain Marko, he wants that power. And so, of course, he goes with her. And so you have Spike kind of show this illusion where it's the X-Men bowing down to Cain Marko. It's Charles Xavier defeated in front of Cain Marko. Everything he could possibly want. But it's Gomor saying, like, but that's the problem right there. Because here's the thing. Once you do get rid of your enemies, then it's your friends. Then it's your lovers. And then you get to the point where you're the only person left in the world that's standing over piles of dead bodies because you went on an endless rampage. Now for Spike, she does shut Gomor up. And we kind of learn a tad bit more about his character here. And so this kind of leads into Spike kind of giving us the origin of Gomor here. What she says is that a century ago, you had Sidorak being able to arrive on Earth. And the reason why, because you had these monks try to harness the power of Sidorak for themselves. Unfortunately, it backfired for them and got them killed. But luckily for the Earth, you had two monks being able to stop Sidorak. One being Gomor and the other one being Tar. Tar, who's right now guarding the Crimson Dawn. The two monks were able to work together to lock Sidorak inside the gym. Here comes the big problem though. Neither monk had trusted one another to guard the gym, so they buried it and went their separate ways. The problem was that over time, you had earthquakes happen left and right. And of course, it allowed Cain Marko to find the gem. Now, what Spike is saying is that if Cain Marko had left the gem like Gomor wanted, then Gomor be able to possess the power of Sidorak for himself. But now with Cain Marko staying, Cain will now have the ability to hold on to that power for himself. Now, Gomor tried to say it's lies, but you have Spike say, close your mouth. Nope, you cannot speak anymore. And she takes Cain away. And so you have Spike take Cain over to this huge statue. Now, we learn here, this is not a statue actually. This is Sidorak himself. This is Sidorak basically saying like, oh, she played you, Cain. Like, what I'm going to do right now is make you my vessel to allow me to head over to Earth to continue to cause havoc across the entire planet. And so for Cain Marko, he's now realizing that he got played by Spite. We also learn here that for Spite, she was locked away in his gym by her brother Despair. But either way, Sidorak promised her to take her with him back over to Earth. Now, you do have two characters being able to come in the very last second to save the day. You see, you have Tar appear and also Gomorrah. Now, when the two characters do appear, they again work together to kind of restore the power that Cain Marko lost. Of course, the power of the Juggernaut. And so with that power now being restored, it allowed Cain Marko the ability to be able to defeat Sidorak. And so with him doing that, you didn't have Cain Marko being able to lead this dimension and head over to, well, back to Earth. And of course for Tar and also Gomorrah, they're stuck inside the gem still. And so the book does kind of end on the note where you basically have Cain Marko kind of being able to go back to Earth. He's now more powerful than he was before he left the Earth. Now, when it comes to Doctor Strange, he basically tells us this is a problem because sooner or later, even though Cain Marko is stronger, by the time he realized the true purpose of the curse that he has now gained from Sidorak, it will be too late. That everything around him is going to be basically destroyed. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.